Hello and welcome back. Finally, we have some new content available for Season of Mastery on the PTR. These changes are, of course, subject to change. We're going to go through some of these changes that happened in BWL, Blackwing Lair. Let's dive right into it, starting with Gore the Untamed, the first boss in Blackwing Lair. This encounter is very unique, requiring players to mind control Gore the Untamed using the Orb of Domination located on the left side of the room, and then using him to destroy all of the chromatic eggs. While one player controls Gore the Untamed with the orb, the rest of the raid needs to deal with the adds that come storming into the room who try to attack Gore. You have to protect him while he destroys all the eggs, and once that is done, the raid can then engage and kill Gore himself. However, much has changed in Season of Mastery. There is now a new giant chromatic egg in the center of the room, and it isn't quite like the other eggs. It cannot be destroyed by the mind-controlled Gore, and it will hatch an unstable chromatic drake once you've destroyed a certain number of eggs with Gore. Now, this new unstable chromatic drake has a number of new abilities. Dream Breath, which creates a dream fog, which is a green-looking cloud that sort of hovers around the room, and anyone who gets caught in it will be put to sleep. There's also a number of different breaths that he can use. Emerald Breath, which deals periodic nature damage. Obsidian Breath, which deals periodic shadow damage. There's also Azure Breath, which creates a frost trap area, which gives players a movement speed, decreasing in debuff, as well as a damage over time. Bronze Breath, which actually creates a little gold area for players who go into this. They'll actually get a movement speed and casting speed increase buff, so actually helpful. And then there's Ruby Breath, which creates a linear flame attack that leaves flame patches in a straight line on the ground, which of course will do periodic damage to those who stand in it. And then, of course, just random flame patches will also appear during the fight, which deals periodic fire damage to those who stand in it. Overall, it's the only change. After you kill the unstable chromatic drake, you can go ahead and kill Gore as well. Typically, you'll just have like the off-tank pick up the unstable chromatic drake, move him away from the raid, kill him over to the side, and try to avoid some of the side effects that he creates. But other than that, nothing too crazy at all. Moving on to Velastras, the second boss in Blackwing Lair, and a very unique encounter that was made even more unique with the Season of Mastery PTR changes. Now, this dragon lends some of his power to you to help defeat him, since he is now under the control of Nefarian. Now, in Vanilla WoW, this was considered a DPS race, which required very good focus on threat management, since you're doing so much damage with the buffs Velastras gives you, and you also have to keep an eye out for Burning Adrenaline, which increases all your damage by 100%, makes spell casts instant, but also slowly kills you until you die, a horrible death that explodes and does massive AoE damage to everyone around you, so you kind of want to leave the raid during that debuff. Now, in Season of Mastery, the boss is no longer starting at 30% health, but instead it is starting at 60% health, which makes the fight at least twice as long as it used to be. Of course, your mileage may vary. Burning Adrenaline, the ability we talked about, which was a death sentence previously, is now a stacking debuff, which increases damage done and taken over time instead of being at full strength immediately. It also can now hit tanks apparently on the PTR, and it is possible to heal through, so you can actually run into situations where a threat is no longer an issue because the tank has a huge amount of haste and damage increase, and the DPS can go crazy without having to worry about pulling aggro in this fight, which they used to have to really worry about a lot. So perhaps unintentionally, Activision Blizzard may have made the Velastras fight even easier in Season of Mastery, depending on your luck. Now, moving on to Fire Maw, where this is certainly not the case. Fire Maw is the fourth boss in Blackwing Lair, and notoriously this boss has been very difficult for many guilds back in Vanilla WoW. It's also the first boss in Blackwing Lair to require players to wear the iconic Onyxia Scale Cloak to not be entirely devoured by Shadow Flame. It can be a very healing intensive fight and requires very good raid coordination. Now, in Season of Mastery, there is a new mechanic that takes the difficulty of this boss up a level. Bam! The next level It is called static electricity and electrostatic discharge. Now, each time you take damage, you'll get a stack of static electricity. If you are within 10 yards of another player, then you both will gain 2 stacks of static electricity. If you are within 10 yards of 2 other players, then all 3 of you will gain 3 stacks of static electricity, and so on. So you can see spreading out is very important for this fight. Now, once you reach 10 stacks of static electricity and you're within 10 yards of another player, electrostatic discharge will be cast, which is essentially like a chain lightning, which will deal damage to you and your nearby raid members within 10 yards. Now, this fight sounds very, very hard on melee DPS, who by the nature of their class are going to be close together, and spreading is extremely important in this fight, so I can see melee DPS having a very bad time. I would say watch your positioning. Definitely have DBM showing your distance to other raid members. Watch your positioning. Remember to drop your stacks of Flame Buffet when you have too many. Remember, it does more and more damage each time it hits you, and you should be able to take down Fire Maw. Now, the last boss that was changed in the Season of Mastery BWL PTR is Chromagus, and this boss has a ton of changes. Now, back in Vanilla WoW, Chromagus had Brood Afflictions, 5 different breath attacks doing different things each, and the Shimmer effect where he becomes vulnerable to a certain school of magic and extremely resistant to all other school types. Now in Season of Mastery, this fight is really cranked up to the max. Instead of only using 2 of the 5 possible breaths in the fight, Chromagus in Season of Mastery will use all 5 in a random order. Also, the wall that we all used back in the day to line of sight his breaths doesn't actually work anymore to line of sight it, and it will hit everyone. This is extremely terrifying because back in the day it was extremely important to LOS Chromagus' breaths. Instead, whenever a Brood Affliction is cleansed, a corresponding spell will be cast. If Brood Affliction Green is removed, a Poison Cloud will appear. If Brood Affliction Bronze is removed, random players nearby will get stunned. If Brood Affliction Red is removed, a Fire Patch will appear. And if Brood Affliction Blue is removed, an Ice Block will appear, multiple Ice Blocks. So, standing behind the Ice Blocks, you gain a buff called Hiding Behind an Ice Block. This is actually the only way to line of sight Chromagus' breaths. The ice blocks also despawn, so when Brood Affliction Blue is removed, you need to have very good timing for when you remove it in order to be prepared to LOS Chromagus' breaths. So it sounds like healers really have their work cut out for themselves. They have to anticipate when Chromagus is about to use a breath that you really need to not get hit by, dispel Brood Affliction Blue, and then create those ice blocks for the raid to hide behind. It's going to be a fight that requires a lot of coordination and a lot of getting used to this new LOS mechanic, but overall I think it's going to be definitely a harder boss fight than ever before. Now, of course, there were also some new spells data mined for the updated Blackwing lair bosses in Classic Season of Mastery. That's how we kind of know about some of these different ones. You can also go into the raid yourself and experience it. There was also some changes to the Warlock Soulstone. It has some new wording. I thought this was kind of funny. It made me laugh. They removed the wording of his or her and replaced it with their, they. Kind of made me laugh that this was the only change they made to Soulstone, just the wording. I'm sure this will piss some people off, though, but I thought it was kind of funny. But I don't really know why they did that, but I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. But that's really it for the BWL PTR changes. If you like the video, give it a like, subscribe for more. I'm Toyhouze, and see you in the next video. Take care.